morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Wednesday, the 27th day of December, year of our Lord 2017, welcome to the John Moore Show. Prepper tip of the day. I want to encourage all of you to, this coming calendar year, develop a second stream of income for yourself. Here's something that you can do, that most of us can do. Set up an eBay seller's account. It doesn't take much. If you don't know how to do eBay selling, there's tutorials that you can watch there on eBay, and most likely you know somebody already doing it. You're going to need a PayPal account and a digital camera, and your dust collectors. Most Americans, most of the time, have what I refer to as dust collectors in attics, closets, garages, basements, barns, things that are sitting there collecting dust, literally, and waiting for you to sell them on eBay, the world's largest marketplace. It's your proper tip of the day. It can really be a lot of fun and very satisfying, too, by the way. Okay, we have our waiting patiently in the green room, my friend Professor James McCanney. Professor McCanney is a credentialed astrophysicist. He has taught astrophysics at the university level, Cornell University, by the way. He's taught mathematics at the university level and Cornell also. He's an amateur archaeologist, radio talk show host, and author. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, John. How are you today?
Well, if I felt any better, it wouldn't be legal. How about yourself, sir?
Yeah, doing well also. Doing real
All
well.
Right.
For the last show here of the year, this is we should have an official military sign-off maybe for 2017.
Well, I'm not sure what that would be, but we can work on that as the hour progresses. The big news in the past week, of course, has been the passage of the tax bill, which I think we're already getting information that American corporations are coming back to this country, that there's going to be more manufacturing in this country, and the difference between a first world country and a third world country is manufacturing, isn't it, Jim?
Well, it's communications, but it's also an attitude, and it's an attitude that starts at the top. What the United States had become was a third world country, because literally we were being run by a bunch of self-serving bank-directed interests. And that's exactly what it was, and it would have been unbelievable if Clinton would have gotten near that office. You wouldn't even recognize this country today. But on the reverse side, yeah, I heard $300 billion from one company alone, reversing their money investment in foreign countries that's just sitting there. It's not being used; it's just sitting there, and bringing it back to invest in the U.S. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of jobs. It's a lot of progress. And they're not going to just invest in one thing. They're going to invest in diverse new technologies, and that's what it takes. That's what we have not seen for 30 years, literally.
Right. Well, it brings to mind something that Rush Limbaugh said, 20-something years ago, and it's proven to be very true, and has been and always will be. Any human activity you economically reward, you get more of. Any human activity you economically punish, you get less of. And that's what we're seeing here, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah, and it's very simple. It's a very simple formula, and it amounts to something called the velocity of money. As money moves, and it's actually something, oddly enough, as much as I don't like Bill Clinton, something he learned. He almost had the national debt paid off before George Bush Jr. got into office. And the simple issue, the velocity of money. Because every time a dollar turns over, the government gets a piece. And so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you can make money move faster, then the government does better. And then you don't have to tax as much it's something Reagan tried to do, but then he started Star Wars. And we're still paying for that. So, but yeah, it's very simple. We could have had Tang and Teflon without NASA. We could have look at what private space is doing, private space corporations are doing for outer space. Things that literally NASA never could do. With its billions and billions of dollars and vast fleets of scientists and top-heavy administration, it never was about going into space. But the biggest issue here is engineering and science. Who was it? Was it somebody called in last week, and I forget where it was, but they said that the United States came in 42nd in English in the world. Kids being tested in something like the 40-something in math and science. Yeah, it's absurd. But, it's so ridiculous. That doesn't even make any sense.
No, not at all. But when you lower standards, and have lower expectations, that's obviously clearly going to be the outcome.
Yeah. So, the populace, has been just, in terms of education, in terms of the newspapers, there's a story that's floating now. The New York Times is patting itself on the back, just glorifying itself because they did this so-called study of, it's an article, that supposedly the Pentagon has been studying UFOs. And if none other than Harry Reid is taking credit for this. It's just so stupid. They have a piece of metal they can't identify, so they're claiming that proves that UFOs exist. That's their proof. Just ridiculous.
Well, I got a little follow-up on that, Jim. When they recover these objects, what they do is they send them to places they have some hope of identifying them. And I know personally 2 men who have picked up these pieces of metal for themselves firsthand. There's some disagreement about the origin of these things. Steve Quayle's done some excellent work the last few years about what the Germans were doing during and after World War II, which brings up a whole other set of questions. The Germans were so far ahead of everybody else in the 1930s and 40s both. There's no reason to believe that they couldn't have possibly escaped with that technology to the Antarctic. And shortly after World War II, Jim, of course, is when we started having the multiple reports of UFOs all over the planet, which the descriptions are very similar to the drawings that were recovered at the end of World War II from the Third Reich. What we need is more evidence, don't we?
Well, yeah, and I worked in that field myself. I have attended meetings, and I have my own designs of electromagnetic propulsion systems that are in use. They were stolen from me because I was not in agreement with using them for military purposes. But some of the designs I have not released because I know where they're going to go. But the private industries are something's going on in the background. I should mention this too, as long as we're talking about this. There are what we call the deep state or the CIA that appears from all that we can gather. There's been a lot of arrests and people that are simply being held. And a lot of this is related to science, or the people, let's put it this way, have been in charge of science like NASA and things like that. So, I'm not sure where all of this is going to go, but, a real, private space program would put us, far into the future, and the idea that rockets are going to somehow take us into outer space. I've been talking about that on my show and Paidcast, that rockets were never, ever the way to go into space. That's what they show the public.
Right. No, it's going to be, the technology that you've been working on is the direction that this will eventually go to, because it's workable and doable, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah, exactly. They're talking about I just wanted to mention this too. They're talking about the Cassini mission crashing it into Saturn. They did not crash the Cassini mission into Saturn. I guarantee you that thing is still out there, doing business as usual. But that's what they said about the Galileo mission to Jupiter, that they crashed it into Jupiter. That's just not true. They would not do that. Take a perfectly functional satellite and crash it into a planet with really very little, if any, scientific value.
Right. Well, why would they make this claim, though, Jim? Do you have any idea?
Well, then they don't have to report any results, and that's an eye in that part of the solar system. I mean, here you have something with cameras and telescopes and data gathering equipment in that part of the solar system. Why would you destroy it? And they say, well, it's running a little low on fuel. Well, no, you would just park it in a set orbit and leave it there. The idea that they're going to destroy the satellite is absurd.
Right. Well, moving on from there, Jim, we have a new year coming up. Do you have any prognostications for the new year, sir?
Well, I'm personally very positive myself, and the things that intelligent people are going to do. We still have the old guard that's going to, guard the old technologies and fossil fuels, and which are really not fossil fuels, but all of that old technology is going to be guarded. But things are just going to blast through. They're not going to be able to hold them anymore. And so that's going to make a big change in everything. And in terms of energy, the big areas are energy, water, food, and overpopulation. And in terms of overpopulation, the world is really not overpopulated. If you look at the density in the cities, 87% of people on the planet live in cities. The rest of the planet is extremely underpopulated. So we have, if you consider all the people that live in cities a problem, then as long as there's food for them to eat and facilities, they'll be fine. As soon as that's gone, they won't be there next week. So the world is not overpopulated.
Well, that's somewhat reassuring, Jim, because that's what we hear over and over again: is the problems with overpopulation.
Another thing is there was an announcement by a woman who's the head of the World Monetary Fund saying that old people are a liability to the world economy. And first of all, she's going to be old someday. And secondly, a lot of the really productive people on this planet are older. They did not retire and go play golf. They're doing very creative things. So I see a lot of production coming out of older people, a lot of new companies, a lot of innovation coming out of people that are experienced. Because you have a lot of younger people with talent but no experience. And you cannot create products and businesses around those products without experience.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, I agree with you absolutely, Jim. And if you've got a question or comment, give us a call at 800-313-9443. This is our last show of the year with Professor McCanney, and next Wednesday it will be 2018. It seems like we were just doing this the other day, Jim.
Yeah, I know. This was a flash in the pan year. Really just zipped by. And so I'm hoping that maybe 2018, one thing I've done is I've spent more time concentrating on where I have to put my attention. And that's sometimes hard to do. We get distracted by email and everything else. So it's easy to get distracted. I'll tell you one thing. I've seen a big increase in crafted disinformation and dealing with the history of man, the disinformation about topics, say Planet X, and things like that, still being woven into the fabric of disinformation that just floats around the internet, and people being trapped in this, etc. So somebody is still very much active creating disinformation. So, everything from the Christmas star, they keep saying that it's a planetary alignment, which it never could be, is, just on and on and on. I see all kinds of disinformation coming out. So, just people have to be aware of that. That's one of the biggest.
Jim, we got a call on hold here. We got Jeff in Massachusetts. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, John. How are you doing?
Good.
So I listened to your guest talk about overpopulation. And you know what the funny thing with overpopulation is that in the third world in particular, like Venezuela and areas like that, when you have starvation in areas, it's not because of lack of food, it's because of how the food is distributed, and people are jammed into cities. And that's not because of overpopulation. That's because of the distribution of resources. Like in Cambodia, for instance, people were forced out of the cities to live in the countryside. So governments have a lot to do with how people are distributed in a given area, whether it's by force of arms, deprivation of food, or the access to food. What you guys think of that?
We'll respond to that after the break. Jeff, thank you. We'll be right back after the break. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 27th. Visiting Professor James McCanney. His website is linked to my links page at thelibertyman.com. Jim, let's get a quick response here to Jeff's question about his thesis that issues have to do with allocation of resources as opposed to too many people.
Well, China, you might say, does have too many people, but there are cities in China. There's something like 44 cities in China larger than New York City. So, I mean, they definitely have a population problem, but that doesn't affect you and me. There's other, like India has a population problem, but there again, the rest of the world could keep spinning and never know about it. So, so when you look at population, he's saying that Cambodia, they forced the people out into the country to be agrarian. And literally, you could take the 7 billion people in the world and growing, and distribute them around the world and actually improve the world, because they would take land that's now barren and grow food and make it into usable land. The one major problem is water, and that's something actually I'll be talking about a lot in the coming, very soon actually. So some major announcements, but even that's not a problem. There again, we have a water management problem. I have a book simply called Water, and I talk about that the world does not have a water issue. It has a water management issue, because we have vast amounts of water, but it's not being managed at all. In fact, it's being controlled, and that's what the entire global warming thing was to give governments and certain small groups the control of water. And that's been happening. So the world population could be solved. There's a lot of indiscriminate growth in population. And as always, it turns out that the people least able to take care of kids are having them like crazy. And the people who are most capable of taking care of kids are not having many at all. So you have to look at where that population growth is, and that's pretty universal. 87% of the world population lives in cities within 50 miles of the coastline. So if something happened on a worldwide scale, you could be down to a very low population real quick.
Jim, there's a film that it's funny and it's sad and it's unfortunately probably true that it really puts forth your premise in a Hollywood fashion. The title of the film is Idiocracy, and if you want to entertain yourself for a couple of hours, get the film and watch it. And it's one of the possible futures that we're looking at, because it does a good job of getting, of course, the premise that most people having the most babies are the ones with the lower IQs, less productive citizens, where the high IQ, high productive people aren't having any babies. And it's done in a humorous fashion, but it's an unusual piece of film that I do urge people to watch. It's fun, and it's depressing at the same time.
Yeah, and this is fueled by the drug problem, which from my understanding, is being dealt with, along with human trafficking and a lot of other issues that have been going on in the background at great profit to a few people. And I hope that's true. I just see small glimpses of things going on in the background that clearly they can't talk about in public, because it's a big topic and has to be controlled. But world population, if you were living in a Chinese city with with 40 or 50 million people, there's something like 9 mega cities in China. And, the vast populations and just rows and rows and rows of new high-rise buildings without the infrastructure to handle the population. And that's what they're doing. So, anyway, like I say, that, in a sense, does not affect you and me. What does affect you and me from China is the dirty coal that they're burning to fuel their economy and other pollution that's going on there.
Yep. We got a break. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be back after the break.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 27th of December. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. You'll find interesting things at my website. Our project, we're wrapping it up this year and starting out fresh next week. Locating and finding images of continents with new coastlines on TV shows and movies. We have 18 images posted at my website at thelibertyman.com, going from recently the last couple of months back to 1952, I think, is the earliest image that we found. Fascinating project. If you find one yourself, get that image to me, a screen capture, and you get your choice of any of my 5 DVDs as a thank you. Also, my website, of course, are energy cleaners. What a great way to start the new year. Give yourself an energy cleaner. If you have joint pain, arthritis pain, back pain, it will probably help. Not getting a great night's sleep, yep, probably help there also. We're increasing the guarantee, the warranty, 90-day money-back guarantee on the energy cleaner, beginning this week, next week, sometime. I don't have a specific day in mind. So check out the energy cleaners and the mattress pads that go with them at my website at thelibertyman.com. I do take PayPal. PayPal is the most secure way to make any payment online. MasterCard, Visa, checks can be sent to my address at thelibertyman.com. Toll-free hour line, 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Professor James McCanney. Jim, you've got 2 radio shows every week. Tell people how they can listen live and the archives, if you would, please, sir.
Yeah, thanks, John. Every Thursday evening, 6 p.m. Central Time from WWCR Nashville, Tennessee, and it's on shortwave. They also stream live and from WWCR.com. And I was surprised to find out that some people didn't know my show was on shortwave. They only listened to the archives. So I told people, get a shortwave radio and start learning to listen on shortwave. So anyway, just I was surprised to find that. Then it re-airs Friday night on WTWW, the next morning, 3 a.m. On Friday or Saturday morning from WTWW. And there's also in Nashville. And there are many other ways to listen on satellite, etc. So all of that information is on my webpage. Just scroll down to the center column, and it says how to listen. And also the archives are on my webpage. So every week I post the archives, hopefully soon after the show. And so that's it. And then my paid cast, $3.95 a month for an extra 1 hour of deep dive into scientific topics every week. So all of that on my webpage.
All right. That's good, Jim. And Any idea about topics tomorrow?
Well, I'll be kind of reviewing 2017 science and looking forward to 2018. And I find it comical. There's some futuristic, I was just browsing at this before the show. They're saying futuristic spacecraft to go into outer space. And they still are listing these improbable spacecraft that were designed or conceived of back in the 1960s and 70s. It's just amazing. And this is part of the effort to keep the public from outer space. The whole issue with outer space is, and it's still the same. I have a little short write-up on my homepage on this. But John, if the government proposed a road system, to build a national road system, and it would take 25 years to develop, and when it got done, we would send 5 roadonauts across the country to establish a base in California. Would you support that?
Oh, of course not. That would be an insane thing to support.
Right. Or how about a national telecommunications network that would take 25 years to build, $1 trillion, and it would be used by a few government employees at the end? Would you support that?
Obviously not.
Why do we have a space program that continues to offer us just that? It should be a highway to low Earth orbit that everybody can use. Yeah, I have a picture on my page. 1952, Warner von Braun, the artist's conception of his concept of a space platform, a rotating space station, and that would be used like Stanley Kubrick's 1966 movie, giving us a future of what space would be like. And we have never seen anything like this. Any movement, and NASA's trying to go back to space capsules to go to the moon again. I mean, wait a minute.
Right. Right. Well, it is very strange, very bizarre, isn't it?
It's ridiculous. It's, and the fact that people somehow accept this, and it's been proven by Burt Rutan. He took a year and a half in under $10 million, built a spacecraft to go into low Earth orbit, won the X Prize, and could take off from a runway and go into space any time of day. And repeatedly do it with the same spacecraft, and launch vehicle. I mean, it's so absurd, I'm just speechless.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, it looks like the private sector is finally going to get into space, doesn't it?
Yeah, but to do that, like Elon Musk has to hook up basically with the CIA. He's Google and Fidelity put a big investment into him. He was not getting any military contracts to launch. This was the world of Boeing and other companies. This was kind of like their private little monopoly. And so anyway, he sued the government, and the day they settled, I think it was out of court, he got a $10 billion investment from Google and Fidelity, who are owned by the CIA, basically, the investments. And so he had to sign into that to jump on the train, so to speak. And that's why he's playing ball with them. And so, he's now third baseman or something, maybe left fielder. So he gets to do some stuff, and that's what they're showing. And he's doing a good job, I got to admit that, but that's not helping you and me.
No, of course not.
The public is being left out of the equation once again. And there again, that comes back to the CIA taking over science in the early 1990s. There was always a black ops space programs and things like that, but it really, really got divided out, and that's where they created what I call Tier 2 science, the garbage science they pawn off on the public.
Well, they did that. They do that to distract from what they're really doing, don't they?
Well, exactly. Yeah, but Bert Rutan just built I think it just had a test the other day, but it's a big aircraft. It's the biggest airplane in the world. Has a wingspan the size of a football field, and it's designed to carry rockets up to probably 50,000 foot altitude and then launch from there and then come back and land. But that's going to take until the end of the century to even fly, they say. That's their goal.
So, the end of the century?
Yeah. So we got a couple more years. Like when people say that, or no, I'm sorry, I think the end of the decade.
The end of the decade. Oh, okay.
But still, it's still almost as ridiculous. But this is, we're well beyond where we should have been very capable of having lots of people going into space on a regular basis.
Absolutely, we should have by now. And behind the scenes, do you think they're already doing it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's places in the world where they can come in and out of the atmosphere undetected. I mean, they can fly drugs in and out of the U.S. undetected. What makes you think they can't go into space undetected?
Well, I've been saying for years, Jim, that these UFOs that people are seeing are actually government technology.
Probably. That's the by mistake somebody got to a location where they could see something, and from a test site or whatever. Because I worked in that area. One of my designs is published in the IEEE, and it's republished in my book Atlantis to Tesla: The Colburn Connection. So anybody can see that. It's not secret. But you never hear about such things. You just see this, Flash Gordon style. I mean, literally, that's what we're still looking at here. Flash Gordon style, rockets to go into outer space.
Right. Well, I've seen those Flash Gordon films, and they look like something a high school sophomore would do. It is, it is what it is. What can you say?
Yeah. So anyway, it's just priming the public that you're going to get a lot more. NASA isn't going to change its, dirty snowball comet model or anything like that. Those are set in stone, and that's just going to continue. So it's up to people like myself to just go off and set the correct direction, and don't even, just consider that the government investment is lost. It's just completely lost, and so don't even expect anything from it.
Absolutely. I tend to have low expectations, so I'm not disappointed, Jim.
Yeah. But other things will be going on, and what Rutan proved, and what I've held all along, is that that you don't need much money to go into outer space. You need resources and dedicated engineers, and it's not that hard. But you don't need a lot of money. A lot of money helps. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Because you need raw materials, you need test locations and things like that. But I thought it was funny when Bert Rutan started to actually get to where it was clear that he was going to win the Ansari X Prize for going into space and meet their requirements. All of a sudden, the FAA stepped in and started developing all kinds of red tape for the safety of the public. They just couldn't imagine the public going into space without them. I always say that they don't care if kids are out in the ocean on 50-foot waves with a surfboard cracking their head wide open, but don't let them go into outer space. They're really worried about them, the safety of those people going into outer space.
Right. What was the real agenda there, Jim?
Well, the agenda is to keep people from going into outer space.
Why do they care?
That's the private playground of the rich and famous. And that's the way it's been. Because, for example, Mars, there's been intense study of Mars, but all you see are these stupid little rovers that probably are not even on Mars. They can send back pictures and from other things, and keep the what would you call the NASA Trekkies, I call them, satisfied that that's somehow super and really cool. But that's not what's going on Mars. They have equipment up there that all over the place excavating, and just like the South Pole, discovering ancient civilizations and then not telling anybody about it.
That's a huge question that I hope we will find resolution to. What really has been going on in the Antarctic for all these years? What's down there? Who's down there? What are they doing? Do the Germans really have a base down there? Why is Google Earth block out hundreds of square miles so you can't see it? Obviously, the Russians and Chinese can see it. Why can't we see it? Lots of questions, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So that's what I say. Don't expect anything from the government. And I started out talking about this so-called study through the New York Times, which, of course, is a big fake news site, trying to make it sound like they're really going to crack this UFO thing. They're going to really crack it open. And there was a secret study being done. Oh, come on, boys and girls. How many times have you heard the same story, and it's just, it's a distraction. It's just complete baloney, because they literally talk and talk and talk and have nothing to show for it, nothing real.
Nope, they don't.
This guy is supposedly worked in a secret program, and he's coming out into the public, and he's going to tell us everything, and it's just chatter. It's just mindless chatter that doesn't say anything. You're always expecting the punchline, but there never is a punchline.
It hasn't been so far. No.
There's no data. There's nothing real. It's a fuzzy picture of something on a jet plane screen that they captured, and that's supposed to prove that there's UFOs. Come on. That's just so hokey that, but they can get enough people conned into that and then pat themselves on the back like they're doing real reporting. Oh, come on. It's just, write to these people and tell them that you people are a bunch of idiots. That nobody's buying, buying into their story.
No, that's what needs to happen. They need to be called out, don't they?
Yeah, and it's just absurd. But that's what you're going to expect from the New York Times or, the standard mouthpieces those are all controlled, once again, the CIA, which is still actively putting out garbage science.
And we'll continue to. Continue to, won't they?
Yeah. We'll see more movies. Speaking of movies, John, I saw recently a movie called American Made, and I suggest that people go see that. The theme is really incorrect, but it's about a guy named Barry Seal, played by Tom Cruise.
Yes, that's based on a true story. It's on my list. Here's our last break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Wednesday, the 27th of December, visiting with Professor James McCanney. His website's linked to my links page at thelibertyman.com. Jim, we're down to the last 3 minutes or so here, sir.
Well, John, Happy New Year. I hope we get there okay. You never know. But we're inching towards that magic moment, and I'm going to do my best to make 2018 a very good year. There's certain key issues that have to be solved, and that's what I work on. And I've said before, the issues of energy, water, and science and engineering, space travel, and things like that. So I personally see some very positive things coming down the road, but it'll take private groups, let's put it that way, I don't know if you'd call them corporations, to just take and move in the correct direction. And then, just ignore all the things that are coming out of the government. And hopefully enough people will see this that, we'll have a bright future.
Absolutely. Well, I hope so. And, my mantra is to hope for the best and plan for the worst. And the economy looks great. If we can avoid war and avoid more attacks from the religion of peace, keep the economy going, it has this coming year, 2018, looks like it could be a pretty good one, Jim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2017, rode through some pretty heavy bumps. And that's not over yet, but it's like we've passed through a certain door and we're out and running now in the right direction. So that's very positive. So I personally have a very positive attitude.
I do also. So I don't want to be cut off by the music. I want to thank you for being with us. It's been a great year, Jim. I look forward to having you back next year, which would be a week from today, sir.
Thank you. We'll be here as best as I can make it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, this year has just flown by, hasn't it? We got a top of the hour break coming up here. We're going to have open lines after the top of the hour break. Take your questions, calls, and comments as we are rapidly winding down this year today, tomorrow, and Friday. Last 3 shows of the year. We'll have Monday off, New Year's Day, and commence the first show of the year next Tuesday, the 2nd of January. So, yes, what a year it has been. The election of Donald Trump just over a year ago, him taking office in January, and incrementally, step by step, inch by inch, dismantling the Obama administration. I think it's great. And I think most of you agree with me that it's great, that this is what's going on. Donald Trump continues to play the media like a cheap violin, and the media, they haven't figured it out yet. They cannot change their paradigm. They cannot change who they are, the way they function, the way they react to what anybody does. So here's our break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 27th day of December. Well, here we are, the last 3 live shows of the year, rapidly winding down the year. If you got a comment about this past year, a prognostication about the coming year, well, give us a call. It's a live call-in show here at 800-313-9443. We'd love to hear your prognostication. I have hope for this new year. I don't know what the new year is going to bring. I have hope that we will have a fun, full, prosperous year for ourselves, that that the economy will continue to surge forward in every which way. Now, the stock market is at unprecedented levels. This Bitcoin thing is up and down like a roller coaster. It's just amazing. what's going on with Bitcoin. I don't participate in it myself. I was encouraged to, I guess 2 or 3 years ago, to participate in Bitcoin, but I didn't do that. And I think I would regard it as fun as play money. I wouldn't take it seriously. I wouldn't. I would regard it as play money only, and not as something that I would put any serious amount of money that I couldn't afford to lose on it. Not at all. Yeah. 2018 coming up right around the corner, and it will be a good year, I believe. This president we've got is stimulating a lot of hope among many people worldwide. It appears that there's other countries and other governments that are emulating what Donald Trump's doing and are moving forward to do the right thing for their own people, protecting their own people. I was just reading about the words of the current leader of the Czech Republic, and I like this guy. I really do. I like this guy. He's doing the right thing for the Czech Republic, and that's what needs to happen. It really is what needs to happen. What's going to happen? Well, I don't know. I know what could happen. What could happen involving the religion of peace, involving the possibility of World War III, starting with either Korea or the Middle East, one or the other. Both of those are certainly possibilities. And we shall see. We shall see what ends up happening. Whether Korea is going to back down and do the right thing, or whether they're going to start a war with South Korea. What's going to happen? I don't know. I know we need to be ready. That's what needs to happen, is being ready. You very listeners, I'm a big advocate of hobby farms. And what is a hobby farm? Good question. A hobby farm is a place where the things grown there, fruits, vegetables, animal products, whatever it might be, is meant for consumption on the premises as opposed to being sold to run a business. That's my definition of a hobby farm. The hobby farm, in my opinion, should be 100 miles plus, 100 miles, at least 100 miles from a major city. And it should be at a good altitude, say 800 plus feet above sea level. That would be a good thing. And have at least, when they're fully staffed, have at least a dozen adults, in my opinion. If you're preparing for a long-term grid down situation, a dozen adults would be a nice number for the following reason. 168, that's how many hours are in a week. And somebody is going to have to be awake all night, every night. That's a challenge. You got 2 people, you're going to have a miserable life. 4 people, not much less misery. When you get up to 6, it starts getting to be a bit more doable. You get up to 12, you can have that night shift covered, and everybody can have a normal life. That's what needs to happen, in my opinion. So, how do you become part of a hobby farm? How does that happen? Well, you can start one yourself. Find that little piece of heaven. I'm working with several people right now looking for their own little piece of heaven here in the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks, and just go about the business of starting it. It takes time. It takes money. So another way would be to develop a coalition with the people who already have a hobby farm. That would be smart, wouldn't it? Almost all hobby farms, almost all the time, are going to need two things: labor and money. If you can contribute one or the other, or both, you'll find yourself possibly very welcome at an existing hobby farm. Possibly. There's a lot of personal dynamics involved, of course, to make that happen. And it's something that needs to be looked at, I believe. Something that needs to be considered. I want to direct your attention to my website at thelibertyman.com. Field training exercise, USS Liberty, December 31st, 2018, almost exactly a year from now. Now, people have been bugging me with to give them a date for years. I've been doing talk radio now since 1995. So now I'm giving you a date, December 31st, 2018, almost exactly a year away. I list 5 different scenarios. You can pick 1 or 2 or all 5 as your choice to get ready for. And as my friend who escaped to Czechoslovakia it was still Czechoslovakia before the Iron Curtain came down, just do it, as my friend Joe would say, just do it. It takes motivation. It takes making that first step. That's once you do something positive, do something real as opposed to sitting and thinking about it. That's the hardest and most important thing to do, is to take that first step. Go out and buy that extra food to start storing it up, extra medical supplies. Start studying to take your ham radio license test. Take that first aid class, that CPR class, whatever it might be for you. That first step is the single most important thing you can do, and go on from there. Now, I list 5 scenarios to get ready by December 31st, 2018, exactly a year from now, a year and 3 days. Here they are. Number 1, economic collapse leading to civil disorder. Number 2, World War III. The third one, rapid onset violent earth changes. The fourth one, widespread terrorist attacks. And last but not least, man-made or natural EMP. I did a 2-hour guest appearance on another radio show last night. We spent the entire first hour talking about EMP. It can be overwhelmingly serious to understand and comprehend this country, the United States of America, going back to the 1890s in terms of technology, without the infrastructure of the 1890s, is brutal thought. It means the end of this country as we know it. It means the end of the United States as a world power. It means the end of the United States for many decades into the future. Government studies have shown that within the first 12 months of a nationwide grid down situation, 9 out of 10 Americans would be dead. They'd be dead from the following reasons: lack of clean drinking water, lack of food, lack of access to pharmaceutical products, and other things, criminal activity, of course. 9 out of 10 Americans dead the first year. It's a gruesome thought, but it's one based on reality. I just found out this past fall, this past September, I wrote an alert that's posted on my website, top right-hand corner, my homepage at libertyman.com. It says, alert, JR's November 27th, 2017 alert. I found out this past September that the Obama administration was actively engaged in stopping effective protocols being put in place to protect the national power grid. I can only come up with one reason why they would do that. I can't come up with a second or third one. Only one reason why the Obama administration would actively stop the protection of the national power grid from happening. That's to make it possible for an EMP attack to be successful. I can think of no other reason. If you can think of another reason, please let me know. Give us a call at 800-313-9443. I can't. I'm a pretty smart guy, and I can't think of another reason. It couldn't possibly be saving money the way they throw money around up there. No, not at all. We have, as I frequently say, we have about 100 B-1 bombers. They've used about 10 of them to blow up things in the Middle East. The rest of them they keep nice and shiny and polished up, so when the senators and congressmen visit, they can see the nice, shiny, polished up B-1 bombers that we've got in our inventory. For the cost of 1 1/3 B-1 bombers. This is the analogy. For the cost of 1 1/3 B-1 bombers, that much money would be all it would take to protect the entire national power grid from EMP. Given the threats that we hear from North Korea, given the fact, and it is a fact, that in September, the former head of the CIA, it's a man with a bit of credibility, wouldn't you say? The former head of the CIA, Director James Woolsey, told us all that those two North Korean satellites that go over us every 12 hours on a polar orbit do in fact have nuclear weapons on them. Now, I can comprehend why it may possibly be a lie. It may be something that's a lie used to give one more reason to go to war with North Korea. That certainly is a possibility. I can't discount that on one hand. On the other, all these former directors of the CIA still, I'm sure, maintain their security clearance and get a monthly briefing if they want to, because I know for a fact that all our flag rank officers have the same privilege. All flag rank would be admirals and generals. All flag rank officers are invited to the Pentagon once a month, all travel and expenses paid for a classified briefing if they choose to go. And I'm sure a lot of them do. For them, it's a social event. They get to spend a day or two with the men and women that they've worked with all their adult life. And so I'm sure it's something that many of them participate in and look forward to. And I have no doubt that the former directors of the CIA have the same privilege of being briefed anytime they choose, possibly once a month, maybe daily, who knows. The possibility of our country experiencing an EMP attack, in my opinion, is a clear and present danger. My opinion is shared by men and women who have access to the highest levels of intelligence coming out of our government. I no longer have that kind of direct access. I haven't been with military intelligence since the early 1980s. I left the Army Reserve in 1983, and now my access is all second hand. I have to rely on other sources to get the access to this kind of information. On one hand. On the other, the open source is scary enough. It's plenty scary. All this emphasis on whether a North Korean missile has any accuracy to it, how far it can go. Can we intercept it? And on and on. Well, the North Korean satellites pass over us, 2 of them, every 12 hours. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Every 12 hours, those North Korean satellites pass over us on a polar orbit. If the national power grid goes down, we may never know. We common barefoot peasants like myself and you out there, we may never know who was behind it. We'll be too busy looking for fresh water and food, staying warm, protecting ourselves from criminals, keeping people healthy to the best of our ability. Having access to the knowledge about who set off the thing is something we may never find out. That would be pretty irrelevant compared to the day-to-day chores of staying alive. Here's our break. Call numbers 800-313-9443. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Thank you. Okay, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 27th of December. My, what a year it has been. The election cycle was, I've been monitoring these election cycles. The first one I'm aware of was 1956 with President Eisenhower, Adlai Stevenson. I would have been 9 years old. I'd been reading the paper for a couple of years by then. And I recall, just like it was yesterday, reading in the paper and how confusing it was to my very mature 9-year-old brain that Adlai Stevenson was too intellectual to be elected president of the United States. And I thought at the time, in my very mature 9-year-old brain, how can this possibly be? How could it be possible that you could be too intellectual be elected president of the United States? So, it turns out that's true. It's an unfortunate reality is what it is. It's an unfortunate reality. But it is true. 2 summers ago, I was at the home of a woman who was the campaign manager for 2 or more presidential campaigns. And while I was there, 2 members of her staff, 2 high-level members of her staff were there as house guests also. And listening to these three talk, what's fascinating to hear what goes on at that level of political discourse. and campaign management and campaign planning. And they were talking about how these candidates are trained, if they don't already know how to do it, trained to segue from their normal level of intellect, vocabulary, conversation, to speak and have the vocabulary of an 8th grader. That's what they do. They have to do it. If they want to get elected, they have to do it. There's no choice. We're at a point, unfortunately, where the illiterate members of our society, men and women who literally cannot read and write and have been encouraged to register as Democrats. And I was in a courthouse a couple of years ago, and there was, I think, 3 women there, 1 Democrat and 2 Republicans, and I was making a statement how if we could somehow disenfranchise all the illiterate voters from voting, that the Republicans would win every election. And the woman there, and she's a nice lady, and she's a friend, and she said, "John, are you trying to say that Democrats are illiterate?" And I said, "Well, I guess I am. At least a percentage of them. I would say a substantially higher percentage of Democrats are illiterate than Republicans are." This whole thing that began, when was it? I guess about 20-something years ago, to motor voter, to have people register to vote when they get their driver's license renewed, to have people register to vote at the library. These are all efforts to get people to vote who would never vote otherwise, who don't think enough of the process to make an effort to go to the courthouse and get registered to vote. Is that such a burden for something so important as voting? I don't believe so. My goodness, have to go to the courthouse and actually fill out a piece of paper at the county courthouse with the county office that takes care of that, or city hall in the case of a city, perhaps. It's an accurate statement, and it can't be disputed, that the illiterate voters determine, because there's a sizable percentage of them. I was just looking at these numbers again just the other day. About half of Americans cannot read above 8th grade level. I was reading 48%. But there's about 10 to 15% that can't read at all. And most elections, most of the time, will be determined by 10 or 15% of the people that vote. It's a sad, sad situation. I'm not saying that illiterate people are bad, that people who can read and write are any better than illiterate people. What I am saying is that if you're illiterate, you're at the mercy of making a decision based on what you hear and see on television and radio, because you have no access to reading written material, articles about the candidates, about the issues. Sad situation. Here's our bottom of the hour break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our Energy Cleaner promotion, which began August of 2016. In this promotion, you get to buy an energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the energy cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with. and, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 27th of December. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. We had a great time this past few weeks getting people their energy cleaners, their mattress pads. I did manage to finally get pretty much all caught up. We were waiting for delivery on some queen-size pads. It'll be shipped next week. They're my factory distributor. They take off between Christmas and New Year's and shut down after the Christmas rush that takes place for 3 months before Christmas. It's a lot of fun helping people get their lives back. It really is. Helping people to help others, because we got people buying their second, third, and fourth units. They're helping their children, their siblings, their parents, and so forth. I see this. I would say about 1/4 to 1/3 of my sales, where I can see on the order form, one person's buying it and it's being shipped to another person. So that's very gratifying. It really is. I just got Steve Whitman's book in the mail yesterday. I'll be reading Steve's book over the next few days, and hopefully have him on possibly the first Thursday of the year, next year, to talk about his new book and talk about how the energy cleaner saved his life. What a marvelous healing device. It's so humbling to have people give me credit for saving their life, myself and the energy cleaner, of course, and Tom Berryhill, the manufacturer of the energy cleaner. So humbling. It really is. The energy cleaner is a marvelous healing device, only $285, shipping included to American zip codes. And, yes, I take PayPal. PayPal is the most secure way to make any payment online, MasterCard, Visa. If you need to send me a check, just send me a check. My address is at my website at thelibertyman.com. Most people these days are buying the mattress pad with the energy cleaner right at the get-go. It's a wonderful combination. I use mine every night. Last night I just slept rock solid. I mean, it's just a great, refreshing sleep with no pharmaceutical products. I do offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. I'll be talking to Tim Spencer about expanding that to 90 days here before the first year, I hope. And I got a toll-free order line. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Taking questions, calls, and comments here at Republic Broadcasting. The call number is 800-313-9443. And where our next caller is Ted in Hawaii. Good morning, Ted.
Hey, good morning, JR. No, Mele Kaliki Maka, we say in Hawaii. Merry Christmas.
All right.
And I wanted to call. I just couldn't let the year pass without personally thanking you for the what you've done to help my life this last year. As I've listened to your program, and I'm just I own an energy cleaner. It's really helping me. doTERRA oils really helping me. Many other subjects that you cover, and I just really want to thank you, JR. I mean, in your pursuit of the truth and your service to our country. I just want to say thank you.
Well, you're welcome, sir. And spread it around. Let everybody you know about how good you're doing as a consequence of listening to my radio show.
Well, I am, and actually visibly friends and my wife commenting how much better I am since I started using the energy cleaner only after a few weeks. And, I was an airline pilot, and I flew years and years, long distance over the Pacific, Australia, all over the world. And I feel like this is erasing a lot of the jet lag and cumulative fatigue and all the physical destruction up at high altitude. People don't really know that you're exposed to a lot of radiation up there and all the electromagnetic stuff. Anyway, this is reversing it. I really believe that, and friends noticeably comment about how much better I look. So just a testimony, unsolicited, just to let you know. And I just wanted to comment, please, or ask you a question.
Okay.
I know you're a veteran of Vietnam, and I just recently watched Ken Burns' documentary on Vietnam, and actually I thought it was excellent. I mean, I learned things I had no clue about, and I'm sure there's much more don't know about, but the Tet Offensive, that really opened my eyes. And I know your emphasis on preparedness, and we can learn lessons from history. And I mean, Pearl Harbor, 9/11, these things we just don't seem to learn. But the Tet Offensive was another major surprise attack from what I saw in the documentary.
It wasn't to me. It wasn't a surprise to me, Ted, because I was there, and I knew by the end of September 1967, I knew there would be a Tet Offensive at the end of January 1968.
Well, this is what I would like to ask you, is maybe you would comment on this and let people, it might motivate your listeners to really take it seriously about preparedness.
Okay, let's discuss that a little bit. I was at the only thing lower than me in military intelligence was a wastebasket. I was a 20-year-old corporal working in military intelligence. I went to the classified briefing every morning at 4th Corps compound. I picked up documents Monday through Friday at CIA headquarters, at ASA, Army Security Agency, and at military intelligence. I also got classified documents from RAND Corporation. Everything I saw, heard, or touched was classified. By the end of September, I knew that a few months in the future, at the end of January, the Chinese New Year celebration of Tet, there would be a major offensive from the enemy. Now, it was one of the major networks, and I don't recall which one, I think it was CBS, but don't hold me to that, did a documentary on the Tet Offensive. And General Westmoreland was still alive. This would have been in the 1980s, I believe. And there was a disagreement between the CIA's analysis and the top levels of U.S. Army intelligence that was working with General Westmoreland. General Westmoreland had given a speech before a joint session in Congress in December 1967, his famous light at the end of the tunnel speech, where he told the U.S. Congress and the President that the Viet Cong were essentially defeated and no longer could mount a credible offensive on the battlefield anymore. That was the speech he gave, and he really did believe that. General Westmoreland, I believe, was an honorable man who would have been ideal to fight another land war in Europe. That's what he was trained for. That's what he understood. What he did not understand was guerrilla warfare. That for every Viet Cong, there were 9 or 10 civilians who supported him with supplies, medical equipment, safe havens, and so forth. He didn't understand that. It just bounced off his brain. So all that fall, Ted, I was getting these reports. I was telling the men I worked with to get ready themselves, that they're going to hit us. They're going to hit us hard. A few paid heed. Most did not. So when it did come, it was no surprise to me. It was no surprise to the men in military intelligence. It was a surprise to the Army in general, unfortunately. And that was my wake-up call, that people will be in denial, and they will not pay heed. Even from a friend, one of their co-workers, most of the guys I worked with, Ted, they were, we were in psychological warfare, a relatively small outfit. We only had about 4 men working in intelligence. The rest of the guys were running printing presses, maintaining trucks, doing administrative work, working at the warehouse, and so forth. So they didn't have access to what I did. But I was very open with letting them know what was coming, and majority of them still didn't prepare. So I haven't seen Ken Burns' documentary yet. It's on my list of things to do, and apparently it's very worthwhile, isn't it, sir?
It's very worthwhile. Actually, I'd like to send it to you. I have a set, and I'd like to give it to you as a gift, because I was really, my eyes were open. I was in shock to see. They were very objective. I was surprised how objective he was, in my opinion.
Well, I'd be very pleased to get that from you. My mailing address is at my website there, Ted, at thelibertyman.com, and if you do mail it to me, I would be very grateful to get that, and of course I'll watch it ASAP, and then you and I can talk about it.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I just, I appreciate you very much, and we have a pattern of denial in our government and everything, and here it's coming January. I thought it'd be a good opportunity just to remember the Tet Offensive, and also to know not to underestimate our enemy. I think that was a big thing, a big mistake they made over there, and they were strategic, and they had a plan, and they were working the plan, and our enemies today are doing the same thing, and we need to be prepared. And I thank you for your emphasis. Thank you, John.
Ted, thank you. We appreciate the call. All right. I was at my brother's for Christmas earlier this week, 2 days ago, and the topic of fruitcake came up, and one of the women there said she's never ate fruitcake. My brother was talking about how he likes fruitcake, and finally, after everybody had made their say about fruitcake, I mentioned how I was so grateful that I kept the fruitcake that I'd received as a Christmas present, and it was in my footlocker during the Tet Offensive, because my unit, at the first morning we woke up and the fighting had commenced about 2 a.m. that morning. My unit had enough meals to feed everybody one meal if each meal was split between 2 men, a C-ration meal. So that's how we had half as many C-ration meals as we did men to feed everybody one meal. That's all we had. That was it. So I was very, and I've been telling the guys, it was pretty common for wives and girlfriends and parents to be sending food to the troops in Vietnam, as it is in every war. Chocolate chip cookies packed in the popcorn to keep breaking up, fruit cakes, any number of items. Food was one of the more popular things for the guys to get in the mail. And I was encouraging the guys to keep this stuff. I said, man, keep it, hold on to it, because it's something that when we need the food, you'll have it. You have it right there when you need it, waiting for you to eat it up. That'd be a pretty good thing, wouldn't it? Yeah, absolutely a pretty good thing. So, that's never, I've always kept that in the back of my mind. The Tet Offensive, 1968. Now, we did in fact win the Tet Offensive when it comes to a battlefield win. But it was a loss politically, because we were put on the ropes. Those first few days, the first 3 days especially, it really wasn't all that clear who was going to win. I recall, just like it was yesterday, laying on my belly, and the mortars were hitting around us, and machine gun fire and rifle fire and all the things going on. And we were listening to the radio. The Americans had a radio station set up in Saigon, and the announcer was saying that the American embassy had Viet Cong inside the grounds of the American embassy in Saigon. And laying there thinking, well, if we can't protect the most secure place in the entire country, the U.S. Embassy in Saigon, what chance do I have? Me and my buddies here behind these sandbags and wire. What chance do we have? Yeah, Well, we got through it, obviously. I was getting reports back from our unit in Saigon of the truckloads of American bodies going through the streets. What the Army did, what the military did, was split up the death count over several weeks into the future to make it look like it was smaller than what it really was. That's what they did. There was a lot of deception going on in that war, as there is in every war. A lot of deception. A lot of lack of knowledge of the true nature of the war. My parents had sent me a subscription to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, so I got that in the mail every few days. And it didn't take me long to realize that the war being reported was not the war I was fighting. It was two different wars. Seriously. It was two different wars. Almost nobody in the United States understood or even heard about the religious aspects of the war. Almost nobody understood, even at anything below flag rank officers, that the war could have been stopped in a matter of a few months by sinking one boat. That boat being the dredge that dredged out Haiphong Harbor, the only deep water port where they could offload the weapons of war, the boots, the ammunition, their weapons, and medical supplies, and trucks, and all the rest of the things that you need to fight a war. Only one bomb sinking one boat would have brought the war to an end relatively quickly, because that dredge was going every day to keep the Haiphong Harbor open for the ocean-going cargo ships that were offloading the weapons of war from Russia and China, the East European communist countries, and so forth. Not many people knew until I suspected it, and then former Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara confirmed it in his autobiography, that the legal basis for fighting the war in the first place was based on something that never happened. That would be the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which led to the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, which gave President Johnson authority to engage in offensive operations with the U.S. military. Prior to that, it was only advisors and trainers engaged in defensive and training operations only, no offensive operations. So we got a black wall in Washington, D.C. with more than 55,000 names on it, the men and women who died in that war, all because of a fictitious attack on the U.S. Navy that never happened. How about that? Well, that's my reality. Most of these wars, since the War of 1812, the War of 1812 was the last time that U.S. forces defended the United States. How about that? All these other wars were contrived and we had no business being involved with. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. Well, Korea was actually authorized under proper authority, but that's a different story. Here's our break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 27th of December. When I first became a homicide detective, the state purchased a nameplate to go on my desk. I really didn't have a desk per se for quite a while, but it says John Moore, Chief Investigator. It's walnut, and it's got a brass plaque engraved, John Moore, Chief Investigator. On the back side of that, facing me, where nobody could see it unless they happened to be behind my desk, and it's still on there. I have a little typewritten statement that's taped to the back of it. It says the following: We have plenty to eat, and nobody is shooting at us. Something I mentioned to my family the other night. Most Americans don't know what hunger is. My definition of hunger, John Moore's definition of hunger, is the following. First, not having food. Second, having angry men who want to kill you between where you are and where the food is. That's my definition of hunger. And it's firsthand experience, obviously. I hope you never find yourself in that situation. I do truly hope and pray you never do. Because it is quite scary knowing that you don't have food, number one. And number two, to get to where the food is, you have to somehow, some way, get past the angry, armed men who want to kill you. Please, I hope that doesn't happen to you. If you do find yourself in that situation, I hope you can prevail and get access to the food with no harm coming to you. That would be my hope and prayer for you. Preparation in advance is what will help you not end up in that situation, hopefully. That's what I'd like to see, is have you prepare so that does not become your reality. That would be great, wouldn't it? Not to have that become your reality. I hope so. Well, we got the new year coming up. This time next year, it will be 2018. So now is the time, isn't it, to start making those preparations so that you can be ready for whatever gets thrown at us. That would be a great thing, wouldn't it? I think so. Yes. I think it would be a wonderful thing. So get started. Absolutely get started. And develop your plan. Work on your plan. And prevail. Make sure that you've got the training, the supplies, the equipment that you need to prevail. That would be a real wise thing to do, don't you think? I believe so. Don't have time for any calls here. We're just about out of time. John from Tennessee, give us a call tomorrow. That's it for today. Map supplies, energy, clean your essential oils now while you can. Your firearms, ammunition. Never, ever give up your guns. Have a fun, safe, productive day. And God bless America.